We light the first candle to honor Buddhism. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all live in equanimity and live believing in the equality of all that lives. We light the second candle to honor Hinduism. May all in this world be happy. May they be healthy. May they be comfortable and never miserable. May the rain come down in the proper time. May the earth yield plenty of corn. May the country be free from war. We light the third candle to honor Christianity. May God bless you and protect you. May he smile on you and be gracious to you. May he show you his favor and give you his peace. We light the fourth candle to honor Islam. Peace be upon you and Allah's mercy and blessings. We light the fifth candle to honor Judaism. Blessed are you, the eternal one, our God, ruler of the cosmos, who has kept us alive, sustained us, and enabled us to reach this moment. We light the sixth candle to honor the spirituality of the Cheyenne Nation. Let us know peace, for as long as the moon shall rise, for as long as the rivers shall flow, for as long as the sun shall shine, for as long as the grass shall grow, let us know peace. And we light the final candle to honor the spirituality of the Samburu people of Kenya. May God set you free. May God guard you night and day. May God set you in your right place, and may you spread out like the grass of a prairie. Today's reading comes from Pierre Pradevan. To bless is to acknowledge the omnipresent, universal beauty hidden from material eyes. It is to activate that law of attraction which, from the furthest reaches of the universe, will bring into your life exactly what you need to experience and enjoy. So please join me in a few moments of silent contemplation of today's reading. So centered here in this place and in this time, I know that God is, I know that Spirit is, I know that the omnipresent universal beauty is, and that we are each an emanation of that one. I know that this is sacred and holy ground and that we are blessed. We are also each a blessing. And that I know that this service is absolutely divine, that we are each here by divine appointment, that Reverend Cece is an open and willing conduit for a divine message. I am grateful. I'm grateful for all present today, all who hear my voice, all who come to know the one as themselves. And so it is.
So our theme for August is honoring all, or respect for all people and all nations. And the spiritual practice we've been focusing on is gratitude and blessing. And this is all part of the year-long series in which many, or probably most, of our international centers for spiritual living are participating. And when I first looked this over, I thought that's an interesting combination: respect for all peoples and nations and gratitude and blessing. But I realized, isn't that interesting? Didn't we just change these batteries last week? I think we're in trouble here. I realized that it's a very wise pairing, because the reason we don't already respect all people and all nations, no matter where they come from or what they look like or who they are, is because we have these old, moldy, disgusting habits of thought lodged deep down inside of ourselves that tell us, thank you, that tell us that those people, for some reason, are different than we are. Just because they look different or sound different. And what we have to do then is break those old habits. Okay, let's see if it works now. Ooh. We have to break those old habits and think new habits and see things and people differently. And of course, gratitude is one of the greatest habit breakers, most powerful habit breakers we have, especially when we let that gratitude develop into blessing, which if you've been practicing along with us this month, you already know. It's a very powerful practice to come from that place of blessing all the time. And we all have old habits of thinking about certain groups. You know, I grew up in Utah, and there it was Mexicans, Poles, blondes, and Mormons, right? Those of us who weren't Mormon told jokes about the Mormons. I'm confessing. We all grew up with those kinds of jokes, Irish jokes, jokes about women, jokes about men, whatever it is. And the group that is the target might change, but the jokes are reflective of a habit we have where we take a whole group of people and lump them all together and say that's how they all are, right? No matter who they are. And you can do that with any group. Nationality, ethnicity, skin color, sexual identity, gender, or any other marker. And whatever group you decide to do that with, it turns into the butt of jokes, or worse, far worse. And we have a history of doing that. Every time we hear that characteristic by which we've grouped all these people together, Mexican or Polish or Mormon or whatever it is, the stereotype pops to the surface. And 100,000 years ago it was Neanderthals. We did it with the Neanderthals. You know, it's been part of our evolution to do that. And maybe we've evolved enough now. Maybe we've come far enough into enough wisdom and spiritual insight and maturity to stop doing that. Today is a horrible anniversary. 400 years ago today, the first African who was kidnapped as a slave was stepped onto our shores. She was called Angela. That wasn't her name, of course. But she endured a war, a 100-mile forced march, the sea voyage over, and then lost everything, her identity and her name. And that was the first day we sort of acknowledged a stereotype that white Europeans had taken on, and that was that somehow it was okay to own other people and take everything about them away. And we're still fighting that one because there are still people saying things like, oh, the black people had it better off when they were slaves. Is that not the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard? We still have people who stand up on the news and say stupid stuff like that. It's still there in our psyche. So I'm hoping we have come to the place of spiritual maturity where we can root that stuff out for good and get rid of it. Because if we're truly to honor and respect all people and all nations, we have to understand that these biases and stereotypes and prejudices, let's call them what they are creations and constructions of thought, repeated and taught over and over and over, and they're fear-based, and so we respond to them, we react to them from the smallest, meanest, nastiest parts of our egos. We know how to deal with those kinds of thoughts. It's what we teach here every single week. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, said, here's how you deal with them. They got put into your mind, into your subconscious mind, using the conscious mind. So let's use the conscious mind to change the contents of the subconscious mind. Because that's how they get in there, right? We hear them when we're kids. We hear them from parents or society or teachers or whatever. And they get repeated and repeated and repeated, and they become part of our thoughts. And we're taught, they're sort of punctuated with some fear-based stuff. At least, when I was a kid, I never could figure out the Poles, because all I knew about them was that they polkaed. They were nice people. I never understood that, but there was some fear of them. And my best friends growing up were Mexicans. I lived in their homes. I had Thanksgiving at their houses. I never understood that one either, but I still picked it up because it's in society, It was okay to tell those kinds of jokes when I was a kid. Later it became okay and stayed okay to tell jokes about gays and lesbians. It's not okay to tell any of those jokes anymore, thank goodness. We're evolving. But the conscious mind, which is the larger, saner, more compassionate, more evolved part of who we are, is able to, when we become consciously aware, is able to substitute a new idea for that old, not pleasant, stereotypical thing. If we do the same thing, we repeat it over and over and over with the conscious mind, right? Because the conscious mind is more powerful than the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is just like, I guess I would think about the conscious mind is the penthouse, and the subconscious mind is the entire building and the basement and the sub-basement and the sub-basement and the sub-basement of that building. There's a lot of room in it, and a lot of junk gets stored there. So this whole process begins with our choice. We choose to think about people differently. We choose to think about everyone as what the reading was all about, embodiments of the One. As each one a place where spirit shows up. And that every single one of us is unique. Every single one of us, no matter the characteristics that may group us together, is absolutely unique. And we're here at this time bearing a gift that is solely ours to give. And our purpose is to give it, right? Our purpose is to give it. So when these old creatures of the subconscious rise up, when we catch ourselves entertaining a stereotype or a prejudice or an old ethnic joke in reaction to a situation or a person, we consciously stop it. We just stop it in its tracks. We just say, no, I'm not doing that anymore, right? We remember what it is. It is an old, mistaken, incorrect pattern of thought. And we once again remind ourselves that the situation and the people with whom we are reacting and experiencing are one spirit in form, one intelligence in action, because there's only one. I think it was last week I read a quote from Ernest Holmes, our founder, and here's part of it. He said, if our human relations are to mean the most to us, we must sense that there is hidden within, around, and through each of us as a divine presence manifesting itself in infinite variations, the same impulse, the same love and life, but never quite alike in any two persons. It is the same life. And so what we have to do is retrain ourselves to see that. We have to retrain ourselves to see the divine. The face of God is what the Quran calls it. Everywhere I look, I see the face of God. We have to train ourselves to see that everywhere. We have to break old habits and instill saner ones, holier ones, healthier ones. And we strengthen that all with gratitude. Because one thing I know about gratitude is that it disarranges our thinking in a really good way. It disarranges the old ways we think and provides a really fertile place for something new to drop in and grow. And that's the wonderful thing about gratitude process, about the gratitude practice, is that it does that and it actually makes it enjoyable. Gratitude feels good, as well as disarranging our old ways of thinking. So when we catch ourselves in those reactionary habits, we give thanks that we're able to see it, right? We just say thank you. Man, I'm so glad to see this. We don't take time to beat ourselves up because that doesn't do any good. We say, wow, thank you for letting me see what I just did. We give thanks that we know better. We give thanks for the person or situation that allowed us this moment of clarity and consciousness. And that changes everything. It changes the whole mix of energy in ourselves and what we're putting out into the world, simply by stopping and saying thank you for this moment of clarity. We just let it happen over and over and over. The reading today is from the book of this month, which is The Gentle Art of Blessing by Pierre Pradevand. And here's one of my favorite quotes from the whole book. When we begin to learn that constant progression, spirit word, is a fundamental law of the universe, when we begin to learn that constant progression, spirit word, is a fundamental law of the universe, existence becomes tremendously exciting, because absolutely every event can become an opportunity to learn a needed lesson or to discover some powerful new vista. Life will not let go of us until we have learned whatever we need to learn to graduate to a higher level of consciousness. God, what's not to be grateful for, right? Life is doing this for us. Hallelujah. We can, of course, throw in a few monkey wrenches. Lots of monkey wrenches some days. We all do that. But we keep getting those opportunities. We keep getting them over and over and over again. The opportunity to see and choose differently and follow up with a thank you. Life will not let go of us until we have learned whatever we need to learn to graduate to a higher level of consciousness. Wow. Wow. So stop and think about just yesterday, just one day in your life. There was at least one moment, unless you're just polishing your halo today, there was at least one moment when someone or something you thought about or experienced, you reacted negatively toward. There is always that moment where we can choose to say, ooh, I just reacted negatively towards that. I'm going to stop. I'm going to be grateful for this opportunity of seeing, and I'm going to substitute something positive for this negative response and reaction I just had. Every time we do that, we strengthen that ability in ourselves. Every time we see ourselves and stop and choose and become consciously aware, we're reinforcing our own learning and growth. Every time we do that, every time we get consciously aware and choose something different that's better for us, we're in our freedom, because that is the very point at which we are free, in the choices we get to make, right? And when I find myself in that moment, I can say, well, I think I'll just stay here and pout or yell. Get me in traffic, and I'll stay here and yell, right? But if I'm feeling sane and feeling like I'm, understanding this idea that the progression is always a spirit word, and I stop and say, wow, I'm just going to bless that man for showing me this moment of needless anger, and I'm going to choose instead to wave and smile and go about my day. I'm free in that moment. I'm free, absolutely free, to choose either way. That's where our freedom lies. And of course, this practice of blessing that we've been talking about all month is gratitude in action, right? We take the gratitude for all the opportunities and pass them on by blessing everyone we meet, blessing every situation we find ourselves in. And to bless simply means to wish that person well. As much good as they need and want, and as much good as we can wish for them. That's what we do. That is gratitude in action. If our intention is to bless everything, the other good thing is everything that is unlike blessing. If our intention is to bless everything, everything unlike blessing will show up. It will rise up in us and say, bless this, so to speak. And we have the opportunity to say, thank you, I will, right? All those things in our subconscious that judge and pigeonhole and assign meaning will come forward in our consciousness, and then we can choose. We can choose to keep it, or we can choose to change it. But Pierre Pradevand points out in his book, it's impossible to judge and bless at the same time. It's impossible, right? So hold constantly, he says, as a deep, hallowed, intoned thought, the desire to bless. For truly then you shall become a peacemaker, and one day you will behold everywhere the very face of God. So if that is our intention and we build it into a practice, we're just not leaving a lot of room for judgment. We're only leaving room for greater consciousness and more evolution and greater development. How different the world would be if everywhere we looked we saw the face of the divine. How different the world would be. There wouldn't be any war, because it's sort of the divine warring against the divine makes no sense, right? Poverty would disappear. Hatred and prejudice would disappear. Self-loathing and self-deprecation would disappear, because the face of the divine would show up in the mirror too. We would recognize ourselves as that one, along with everybody else. It would be a world that works for everyone, seeing the face of the divine in all others. Each of us would do then what we needed to do to make sure that that divine and the other were honored and cared for and loved. And we would at the same time make sure that we were getting cared for and honored and loved in return. It would be a world that works for everyone, because seeing the face of the divine even in those who make terrible decisions, each of us would demand that justice was served with kindness and compassion, instead of hatred and retribution and fear. It would be a world that works for everyone, because we would see the divine in the very planet we live in, and we would do what needs to be done to care for her health and well-being and fruitfulness. Is that world possible? Yeah, it is. It is. When enough of us choose to live in accordance with that vision, accordance to that practice, blessing everything and honoring everything, it unfolds. As Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So why not us? Why not? Why don't we choose to be that small group of thoughtful, committed citizens? Why don't we choose to live at our highest and largest level as conscious, evolved beings? Why don't we choose to strive to see the face of God and not do anything until we do? Not judge, not hate, not run, not lash out, but simply look and keep looking and keep blessing and keep being grateful for the opportunity of looking until we see it, and then we live accordingly. If we were to choose to live that way and bless everything in our path over and over, again and again and again, in gratitude, until that vision of a changed life became reality, we indeed would change the world.